Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to Center for Spiritual Living Greater Boston, and good morning to the people in our sanctuary, and good morning to the people viewing this live streamed. So, this is the first Sunday of March, and the Centers for Spiritual Living's 2017 theme is Values-Based Living. Our month's theme for March is Education and Continuous Improvement. And the title of my talk today, because I will be speaking for the whole talk, is, look at that, Reachable and Teachable. Reachable and Teachable.
And we're proving that today.
So, you know the title. All right. So, when I think of Reachable and Teachable, the first thing that comes to my mind is, when was there a time in my life that I was reachable and teachable? And when was there a time in my life that I wasn't reachable and teachable? Now, I know that each and every one of us, we are on our own wonderful path in life. Each path is so unique, so individualized, and so important, because each path has so many wonderful experiences, if we perceive them as wonderful, as we go along our path. So when I reflect on my journey, I want to look at the times that I wasn't reachable. Because if I wasn't reachable, then there'd be no way that I would be teachable. So the first thing, now some of you know this who have listened to some of my talks in the past, but the first thing for me, when I wasn't reachable and teachable, was when I was living from that victim consciousness. The poor me, the life is, life is happening to me. Life is so hard. And really what I was experiencing is a sense of separation, and really I was in a place of unalignment with God. Another time was when that I was being wrapped up in all of the outer conditions as being the truth of who I was, and being the truth also of my reality. I was perceiving life from a very, very low place down that rabbit hole. Terribly low down that rabbit hole. Now, anytime anything, when I was there down in the rabbit hole, that anything came my way in a positive sense, which could have been a teachable moment, I wasn't reachable. I was not reachable at all. I wasn't open. I was closed to the lessons and good of life that is always present. I was completely shut down. So before Science of Mind for me in 2002, I really lived so much of my time in that victim, in that ever-evolving, self-inflicted prison for me, in total lack and in total limitation. Now, I will admit, during some of those times, I would pull myself out of that, do something where, to live and be some part of society where I was making a difference. So I would step out of that rabbit hole, but then I would always end up back in the rabbit hole. I would always end up back in the rabbit hole. Wow. Now, has anybody here ever experienced that victim mode? Raise your hand. Yeah, I mean, come on, let's be honest. I think we all do. So, where were you reachable and teachable, and where were you not reachable and teachable along your journey? So I invite you this coming week to really reflect back on those times and explore other reasons that might have sprung up for you that made you not reachable and teachable. And you might say, why is he focusing on not? The reason is, for any of us to be teachable, if we're not reachable, guess what? It doesn't happen. It really doesn't happen. So living from this place as victim, it also closed the door for me. It closed that door regarding me wanting to have any type of self-improvement, any type of happiness or peace and balance. So there was like a thick veil in front of me. And this thick veil hindered me to realize my goodness, my self-worth, and my lovingness. So, just driving up here this morning, I said to Rev G, oh, something came to my mind. Victim, right? Veil. The last word in the last letter in victim is M. More of the same. So when I got sick and tired of being victim, I went to being a victor. Now listen to the V's. The V for victor and the R, removal of that veil. Removal of that veil. That came to me driving up here this morning, so I wanted to share it with you. So, when I decided to change my life, when I was sick and tired of living in that prison which was self-inflicted, that's when I began to contemplate I needed a change. And thank goodness, two dear friends in 2002 invited me without knowing, going to a spiritual center for the first time. So I won't get into that story, that's another long story, but that was the beginning of me working on my embodying and understanding oneness, my wholeness, aligning myself with God, and seeing my connectedness with all of life. I was rising from victim to victor, and I began to pay attention to my life's journey and realizing that my life's journey had lessons in all of the different paths that I was taking. The light side, the dark side, the challenging side, the times of ease. Each experience brought me lessons, and I had to be open to that, but I had to be reachable. So I was now reachable, and I became reachable by looking at the lessons of life. And once I became reachable, that is when I became teachable. So the more and more that I studied this science of mind philosophy, and I put the tools of the philosophy to work, my little science of mind toolbox, as you know, I've mentioned that many times, that's when I began realizing that life wasn't happening to me, that it wasn't life and me, but life was happening through me. Life was happening as me. And that I was the one that was connected to all of life. It was all connected. That flow among everything. I think of it as the blood flowing through our bodies. Well, I look at everything and I see like this vibration of everything being connected and that energy just flowing and flowing and flowing. Kind of warms me up. So, I was becoming, as all of this happened, more open, more reachable, and then I was so grateful that I was teachable. So from victim, I went to victor, but not in the battle sense, but in the conscience sense. So I'd like to read you this quote from Science of Mind, page 470. We are on the path of experience. Just walking to the real fact of our true being, as we awake, we find we are surrounded by many false conditions. But there is something within which remembers the real state. If one will sit in quiet contemplation of good as an inner experience, he will experience the good which he contemplates. He can do this only as he turns from that which is evil and dwells on good alone. The universe will not be divided. And that's the end of the quote. So the quote tells me, as how I look at it, that when I'm living from or getting caught up in this outer reality, experiences that might really not be seeming to be in alignment with the truth, the false conditions, that's like what he's talking about, the evil, okay? That there is a tendency that me and my remembering and knowing of the good of life fades away. It doesn't go away, but it fades from my consciousness. But when I go within and come from that place of knowing, that place of good, and the only thing that it really exists, good is the only thing that exists, then that is when I experience the good in my outer life. The good in my outer existence that I am contemplating when I go within. Okay? So contemplating the good of life, the good of God, the good of me, and the connectedness of all, and the more I do my spiritual practices, that's when I know that my heart begins to open up. I think of a flower. My heart begins to open. I'm experiencing more love. And then I become more open-minded, thus becoming more teachable. So when I learn from all of my life's experiences, coupled with going within, knowing and embodying my connection to the will of God and all, that's when I feel more courageous to step out of my comfort zone, more courageous to step out of that box. So see, there is no longer a victim, there's a victor. And it reminds me of, like the phoenix rising from the ashes. I'm that phoenix. Each and every one of you can be that phoenix. So that path of awakening, that path of openness, of growth, of love, and spiritual deepening, and that joy, all of that path is lined with, this is my perception, all of the classes and the workshops and the seminars and all of the spiritual practices that allow me to embrace education as a lifelong endeavor. So that's what I see my path, what's the word that went out of my mind? The path covered with. Because that's the foundation for me to keep learning. And I really believe that every day of my life is going to be a learning experience. And guess what? Even my transition out of this vibration, I know is going to be phenomenal. It's going to be a great learning experience. Not that I'm ready to go anywhere at this point. I always slip that in, you know, because the words we speak happen. I'm here for a long time. But that's really, you know, it's so amazing. So, learning will take place for me even as I exit. So the more that I see the divine in all, and the more that I am opening myself to all the good that exists in this life, and the more I am mindful of my oneness with all, that is when I'm able to show up authentically. And because of all that I just mentioned, how could I not be reachable and teachable? You following me so far, everyone?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I invite you, each of you, to contemplate this also. Contemplate all the good that you want to see in your life. And I know as you contemplate this good, that which you contemplate within will become the experience of your life. So I'd like to read you verse 2 from Romans 12. It says, "Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to discern what is the good, pleasing, and perfect will of God." Thank you, because I forgot the slide. We get another slide. There it is. Look at that pretty tree. Okay. So for me, this quote implies for me, this is how I look at it. Don't let the world define you. Don't let the world define you. Rather, you show up authentically. Each and every one of you, be the great you that you are. Be the great you that you are. And in doing so, by showing up and letting your light shine, because it's your light and it's important to share that with the world. And in doing that, showing up authentically, you are open to be transformed, and this transformation occurs when you yourself become open to the new thoughts and ideas, and that renews your mind. Yep. Thank you. That renews your mind. I say amen to that. Yes, amen. So, this aligns us with the will of God. Now you might say, the will of God. The will of God, which is good and only good, and allows us to experience the fullness, the richness, and the magnificence that each and every one of our lives are meant to be. Each life here is meant to be rich and full and magnificent and joyful.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to share a couple of stories of my 33 years of teaching. Something that, 33 years. Okay. So something that stuck in my head. So when I saw this topic, I went, yes. No one is teachable if they're not reachable. So I taught elementary school and middle school, and my favorite grade was 4th grade. I stayed in the 4th grade for years. I never got promoted. But anyway, 4th grade, I felt it was my call to get to them to be reachable. I taught in inner city schools in Providence, Rhode Island, in Los Angeles, California, in Coachella Valley, in California. And I saw kids coming to me totally depleted, beaten, this is 4th grade, beaten down, feeling not good enough, and always saying the word like can't, I can't, I can't. And thus, because they were so beaten down, they showed up as behavior problems, really, in the classroom. But really what they were looking for, what were they looking for, Shao? You've been a teacher for a long time. What are the kids looking for when they're reaching out and, doing all the naughty things? They're looking for love. They're looking for, really, even in the 4th grade, confirmation of who they are. But they don't know how to positively get that. So they were lashing out for love. They were not reachable at that time. So it was my job, firstly, to get them reachable. And how I did that is when a child entered my room at the beginning of the year, I know I needed to empower them first, raise them up because they were so beaten down. So beaten down. And I had to see the good in each one. Now, in elementary school, they had files that would go along with the kids from, kindergarten through. And teachers would write comments along with their tests, etc. I made it a point not to read what was in those files about the new students that I was getting each year. So I first began looking at these little lives as being meaningful, as being victors, as being capable of doing anything. So the first few weeks in my classroom, I did so much work on uplifting them, getting them to be reachable. I had to get them to be reachable so I could do my job as a teacher. I could stand up there and teach and teach and teach, but they were closed to it. So that's what I did. So I gave encouraging words. I was proud of my students, and then I had a funeral. And my principal would always laugh. This was the beginning of every year. I had a funeral every year with a little box because each of my students wrote the word can't. We talked about the word can't and how when you say that, it stops you from doing anything. And I said, let's make a pact. Let's never use that word can't. Oh, okay. So then we put it in the box, and I would literally, it was hysterical. You had to see them. We'd walk out, the whole bunch of us, and I would dig a hole in the play yard and bury the box. And my principal would go, when are you doing that funeral? He just thought it was so crazy, but he said, what an idea. What a great thing to do. And they were having a good time. So that was one of my things that I would do as a teacher. The second thing is, while my classroom was so much like science of mind, without even using the word, I would have wisdom lessons during the day. So as an example, if something happened, and I knew it would be a class lesson in a positive way, okay, without knocking or demeaning anyone in that situation, I would say, okay, time for a wisdom lesson. You know, treat others as you would like them to be treated, be kind, all of this stuff here, right? I know that I could do anything if a kid just was, you know, coming back as being, you know, being negative and not positive. So it was so funny. As the day would go on, if the kids didn't hear that wisdom lesson, they'd say, Mr. Tansey, where's our wisdom lesson for today? So they were like, they wanted to hear words of love, because that's what wisdom lessons are. And the last thing I will share, because some of you have met this person that I am talking about at our installation that we had this year, I also taught middle school. And it seemed like all the people who were problems for other students, all the people who like the teacher would go, oh my God, there's so-and-so. I don't want them in my class. I mean, really, because, you know, they're troublemakers, etc. They had that consciousness. Well, there was one student, when teachers would see him, they would go, oh my God. And that was my student Al, who many of you who were at the installation met. He was really one of the problem children of the school at that point. He hung with all the kids. Most of his friends were in jail. Some of them died, overdoses, whatever. But he would come to my classroom, and boy, if I could have a son, he would be the one, because he taught me so much. And I saw the good in him. When he was, you know, so feeling negative and being that, I call it punk, you know, this tough little Italian kid, I just kept reminding him of his goodness, of his intelligence, and his kindness. So he would cut classes to come to my class, but at least he wasn't leaving the building. The team, okay, he's with you, that's fine. But, you know, he could have ended up in prison. He could have ended up dead. He graduated high school. He went to college. He dabbled in law school. He is now a policeman. He's made a difference. And he's such an amazing human being. So when we can work with people and lift them up, raise them up, see in them the divine, that namaste, see that in them, that is one of the best things we can do for anyone. So in conclusion, I have to breathe for a moment. To me, that the science of mind is really one of the greatest teachings that I have really found in my life. But there is one requirement to enter into this philosophy that I call transforming, and that's the willingness to be reachable and teachable. And through the understanding and embodiment of this teaching, each one can have that life that they truly desire. So please ask yourself, am I willing to embody the science of mind principles and practices so that I may be a transformative presence in the world? How am I here to serve? What gifts do I have to share? So my call to action for you is to go forth, share your gifts, share your truth, and share your unique, individualized expressions of love with all of humanity.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right, so repeat this after me. Let's say this affirmation together. Here we go. I am open to the transformational process at work through my relationships, my work, and my life.
I step boldly into my day, sharing the magnificent gift that is my life.
And so it is.
And so it is.
And now, Maria will now do a spiritual mind treatment. She is in practitioner training, and we're very proud of her.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored to have been asked to do this today. And so, my name is Maria, and if you just want to take a deep breath, close your eyes if you would like, release, and knowing that the purpose of this spiritual mind treatment being on Teachable and Reachable, to be together as a community and to celebrate, to inspire, to listen, to learn, to remain teachable and reachable with one another as all divine sparks of that one. I know there is one universal life, spirit, source that I choose to call God, the ultimate source, infinite wisdom, divine love and perfect law, perfect peace and well-being, teacher of teachers, infinite mind. The divine spirit is wisdom, clarity, love, and joy. God is perfect and true essence of all there is. And I am one with this divine substance, this truth, this perfect essence of life, love, peace, wisdom, and clarity. I live and feel in unity with this one God, one Spirit, one true power, intelligence, and wisdom. And as I am one, I know and declare that this is true for each and every one here today. I seek the divine to guide these thoughts of clarity and revelation of truth as a teachable and reachable community that is guided to a place of wholeness, love, and truth. There is no lack, no limitation. All are perfect, whole, and complete. There is no wrong path. All leads to God, the infinite wisdom and knowing. This community of well-being, wisdom, and understanding has so much to offer and learn and experience, so much to share through this science of mind teaching, through the teaching one another our own special, unique gifts, and through sharing in one another's presence. I realize that God is good, and I and everyone here is a reflection of this goodness. Any commitment to a task will be successful because it will be reinforced by God's commitment to this effort. The spirit within is free, complete, and perfect, reachable, and teachable. Our open, receptive hearts and minds evolve in God consciousness that exists here and now, allowing that essence to flow through and renew each and every one. I open my heart and my mind and express gratitude and feel the blessings occurring here and now, and know that there is clarity and guidance as this truth is revealed. I give thanks for this spiritual growth and experience. And I am so grateful, so grateful for this place at 50 Dudley Street, where we can share our experience, our strength, and our vision together as one. I fully release this prayer into law and know that it is already done for this or something better. Amen. And please join me in saying,
and so it is.